about to say, with when most people are moving to Africa, their main concern is how to make money. You've been on the continent for over 10 years now. And although I've seen, I've seen other interviews that you've done, so I know that it hasn't been great all the time. How have you been able to manage to stick it out and not hightail it back to Ohio?
Yeah, I would think the short answer is that I'm very stubborn. I'm very, very, very stubborn, and I've got a love affair with Africa that's that's limitless. To be quite frank with you, it's just I love this place. You know, every country I've been in on the continent, I really, I just feel at home. So
Yeah.
just that in and of itself, keeps me pushing forward. My first 8 months in Namibia, I didn't have a job, so I was literally just I would go to one organization. Can I volunteer? Can I help you write a proposal? Can I help you do this? Can I help you do that? Um, so the first 8 months, no work. Then after that, I had a job, 3-year contract. Contract was up. Another 8 months without working, and then luckily find another job and keep pushing on. And the thing about it is, when um, a lot of times when you work this side, you're not getting like an expat salary. You're getting a local salary. So, I've even though I've worked in international organizations, I get paid just like the brother down the street. I get paid like by a Namibian salary. So my mother really taught me, just growing up, my mother had a job, but she always had a side hustle too.
Right.
And she was, yeah, I remember growing up, my mother, back in the day, she would be typing people's manuscripts, typing people's books on her little typewriter on her desk. So that's a skill that I picked up as well. So I do a lot of consulting work. Like even now, I don't have a 9 to 5 job. My last job, my contract ended in 2018, so I was sort of forced to embrace my entrepreneurial side. So, I've done quite a few businesses here, some successful, some not so successful. What I'm doing now is a bit I'm a bit more optimistic about our latest business pursuits. So I think what's really held me in the continent thus far is being purpose driven and just looking at it like going. I've got a loving mother, a loving family back in the States. So if I had to go home or go back to Ohio, of course their doors are always open. But once I made the decision to come to Africa, I've got to give my level best to to reach my greatest aspirations.
Give me 1 second.
That's all good.
Um, so yeah, you've been, I don't think many people understand like the ability to be able to do like consulting work and what that looks like. Can you kind of explain? 'Cause I've worked for development companies myself in consulting. Oftentimes people tell our folks don't come to Africa looking for a job, which I agree, kind of, sort of. I do believe though that if we could do some work in development, um, there could be more impact. Um,
True.
we could make more impact than the other people because most of them aren't necessarily there for impact, they're there for the money. um so can you explain like how do you get involved in development or like consulting for maybe a development agency?
I think the first thing to do is make sure your skills align to some set of the objectives of what an organization is doing. Of course, if a person with medical skills, the world is their oyster. I mean, there's tons of opportunities in terms of clinical work, medical work, and things of that nature. But for those of us with more sort of general skills, when you look at the development space now, just the idea of communications is something that all development agencies need. They need to get the word out about what it is that they do. So even a person who's got communication skills can try to position themselves to be a social media manager for a particular campaign or something that XYZ NGO is doing. In
Right.
mine, for me, for example, statistics and data analysis isn't something that I'm passionate about, but it's something that I can do.
Right.
So monitoring evaluations and looking at the impact of programs is something that many organizations need. Um, that's not to say you always get the job once you submit a proposal to consult, but I've been lucky a bit, so I've been able to get a few here and there to sustain me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that if our people understand that there are other options, especially when you have certain skills, it would make it easier to to wrap your mind around the idea of repatriation, because of the idea that, okay, even if maybe this business that I want to start doesn't go exactly the way that I want it to go, maybe I could try something else. And
Exactly.
speaking of business, you said you've started a few businesses and they didn't all go the way you wanted it to go. Can we just talk a little bit about that? Because I think that for me, I think it's a bit unfair, or I don't know the word that I'm using. I'm looking for, but I think we give people sometimes people give the impression that, oh, you just come to Africa and start a business, and then your life is just gonna be amazing from there. Can you just talk about the struggles that you encounter when, I mean, business is hard anyway, but
Right.
can you just talk about that for a minute here?
Yeah. When I would say in 2012 is when I did my first business venture in Namibia. And mind you, I'm coming from Kenya. I'm a Rastaman, so I love reggae and African music. So the first venue I opened up a sort of a restaurant in Namibia. I'm thinking I'm in Africa, and we're gonna play reggae music. We're gonna play some West African music, obviously some Namibian music, and a ton of people will come and show up.
Right.
It didn't happen. you know, it didn't happen. And I was working full time while I was trying to run this restaurant slash concert venue. And the rent, this was 2012. I think the rent we were paying was about 30,000 Namibian dollars, which is plus minus 2,500 of my US dollars.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So I lasted in that business for about 8 months. Yeah, I think we made some memories. I think it was an opportunity for sort of people in the entertainment industry in Namibia to get to know me a bit, because I used to work in a little bit concert production and promotion back in the States as well. So it was good to sort of get my feet wet a little bit in the entertainment industry here. But it was a resounding defeat. I mean, I lost a lot of money, but I made some good friends, and I figured things out a bit. A few years later, still when I'm working full time, I opened up a pizza shop that lasted for maybe about a year.
Okay.
But again, uh, the rent here is very expensive. Even this was 2015. I was paying about 15,000 Namibian dollars a month. That's about 1,000 US dollars. Um, and Windhoek is in Nairobi. It's a small city. The city kind of goes to sleep at 6 or 7 o'clock in the central
Ooh.
business district. So again, it was another L, but I learned from it.
Yeah.
Um, 2018, when I left my last job, I opened up a beautiful like um, coffee shop, entertainment venue. I'm still doing my coffee business. I'm still wholesaling and retailing and importing and exporting coffee, but the cafe side of it, I'm not doing any longer because, just in short, I picked the wrong business partner. There were some issues.
Yeah.
Those were sort of the some of the challenges. Our newest venture, I'm a bit more optimistic about. We've got a professional team. Things are going nicely in terms of our newest business venture. But I think failure sometimes prepares you for success. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's how I really look at some of my past business ventures. And I've always had to work full time while I'm doing business. So now my mind is freed up. I'm a bit more I can sort of tap into my creativity and my business acumen a lot more than trying to relegate it to an after work type passion.
Right.
So yeah.
So for those of us who are still on this side and they want to come and start a business and do all of that, what kind of advice could you give them as far as business goes or
I
starting?
would my first piece of advice would be to spend some considerable time at minimum a couple weeks or best case scenario a couple months in the country and the city that they want to do the business. Make sure there's a demand for that business. A lot of times you think you've got a great idea, but consumers might think it's a great idea as well, but they don't see it as a priority. And figure out your target market, whether you want the people that live uptown to support you, whether you want the people in the middle to support you, or whether you want to provide a product or services to people, to the more struggling members of the community. Just try to do a nice disaggregation of your target market and try to make sure you've got something that not only that they want, it's something that they need because you know the the dollar and what's the word like the disposable income this side is less. So you've got to whatever product or service you have, it's got to really try to add value to people's, whether it's entertainment, whether it's a primary resource that they need, whether it's a product or services. You want to make sure it adds some value to people's or at least people perceive that it adds some value
Right.
to their wants and needs. So but there's tons of business opportunities this side. It's just a matter of really being creative and having, of course, the resources to sustain it. I think that's been a challenge of mine as well. I kind of, one paycheck I'm paying my rent or my mortgage at my house. The next paycheck I'm paying my rent at my business premises. So if people have the resources, it makes things easier. And pooling resources, this idea of collective security, I did it on my own, and of course with my former spouse, we did it together. But if people can pool their resources together, it makes the burden less in terms of doing business because we all know the first 6 months you might not be seeing a profit. You might just be pushing money into the business. So just make sure you have enough money to sustain whatever endeavor that you're trying to do.
Right. I totally agree with you. I think that many people who are, you look at the continent and you see that there's so much need and there's so much that can be done, but I don't think people take the time to do the market research that it takes
Right.
to figure out, while this may be a good idea, is it something that the population is ready for? Is it something
Exactly.
that economy can support?
Mm-hmm.
So if like as I'm a farmer, so food security is my business.
Mm-hmm.
But what food am I growing? Is that food, who is my target market? And am I going to be able to get customers who are gonna buy this food from me. Why will they buy the food from me? So, you know, I think it's important that our people really learn how to do the market research. Like you said,
Exactly.
you need time on the ground to actually do the research that it takes. For our farming business that I started in. For more on this video, please click the link in the description below. Thank you.